Hey, what gives around here?
Well, you're in Maplewood now. That man is part of the story you came here to get.
Does he always go around interfering with people like that?
He didn't always. But people around here don't need much of that anymore. It says, close cover before striking on every book of match. We do it.
Well, what do you know?
I understand it. Your magazine has been doing a series of safety articles, and you've been assigned to write one about us.
That's it. We picked your communal statistics. It seems that you folks have hung up the top record in your state for 2 years in a row. How do you do it? Not just by closing matchbooks.
No, but that's kind of a symbol. See that bunch of fellas over there?
Yeah, that's the character who grabbed at my matchbook.
Well, that's our lunch club, and the story starts right there, a couple of years ago. Our lunch club wasn't really a club any more than Colonel Williams had ever been a colonel. Ace Hopkins hung the nickname on him one day. Secretly, I think the colonel liked it. Besides them, there was myself and Dr. Sam Atwill, a nice guy who had mostly country trade, but an office and emergency hospital in town. About halfway through lunch that day, we heard a siren outside.
Fire, bank robbery, or just the chief going out for lunch?
Yeah, well, it could be for me, too, you know.
Oops, I guess you're right, Doc.
Pardon me, gentlemen. They told me Dr. Atwell was over here.
Yes?
Oh, you the doc?
Yeah.
Hit and run case. A woman just outside town on 51. Pretty bad.
That's so? Well, it's right near my house. I guess I should have gone home, let Ruth fix my lunch like she wanted to. I'd have had time to eat it then. Led, you get my shortcake again. Not this time. I'll have to handle the story.
Pardon me, sir. Are you a close friend?
Yes.
You better come with me. We think it's Dr. Atwell's wife.
That's about it, Mary. No skid marks, no broken glass, no nothing. Just another hit and run.
Is that all you're going to say, Daddy?
Oh, what else can we say? We can't give Sam back his wife. I couldn't seem to get back to work. I kept thinking and wondering what goes on inside of people on the other side of the statistics. The ones who are left over. I soon found out about the doc. All of a sudden, he was somebody in town. I don't mean that as a compliment. Overnight, he became a town character.
Hey, what's that? That's a red light. So what? Those are for automobiles. They're for everybody. Are you a policeman? Is that the only time you obey the law, when there's a policeman around? Why don't you mind your own business?
The colonel had seen it all happen on his way to pick me up to go to lunch.
Well, if the old boy continues with this screwball idea of his, somebody's going to sock him in the nose. You'd think he'd get discouraged, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I feel sorry for him.
Sorry for him. You know, Ed, I'm likely to have a big story for you one of these days.
Oh? What's that?
You know the old Harrison estate out at High Point? Swell place for a nightclub. Jack Darwin and I are going to build one.
I thought Doc had an option on that land for a hospital.
Yeah, he's out trying to get donations. An endowment, he calls it. He'll never make it.
Pretty far out for a nightclub anyway, isn't it?
No, half-hour drive if you step on it.
We were walking into the dining room.
Oh, yes, you did.
And we saw Sam having a run-in with some stranger.
Now listen to me.
Don't give me that stuff. If you want to fight, come on out in the alley.
What's the matter here?
This guy. I was sitting here minding my own business when this character comes up and smacks me one.
Who, Sam?
If that's Sam.
I only grabbed at his hand. He was lighting a match with the book open. What?
Wouldn't you know?
Now, you see here.
Go on, Sam.
Oh, all right, Ed.
What's the matter with that guy?
You mustn't mind Sam, mister. He's a crank on all safety rules. Sam thinks, just because it says on the match cover to always close before striking, that you're actually supposed to do it.
Well, for crying out loud. Forget it. Come on and have lunch with us. No, thanks. No? You're welcome.
Kind of feel your oats, ain't you, Doc? That fellow was really hot under the collar. What was all the fuss about?
It wasn't anything.
Hello.
Yes, it was, too.
I'll bet you the next time he lights a match, you'll think about it. And that's just another step towards safety.
Oh, safety, Sam.
Well, we call ourselves a club, Ace, and we really ought to be one. We ought to have a program.
Sure. The Colonel could make a speech and Willie Mae could sing. Couldn't you, Willie Mae?
Sure, I'd love
Now,
to.
wait a minute. I mean a program of something to do for this community. Something like a safety traffic committee.
Here we go again.
Well, I'm serious. We're having an awful lot of accidents for a town this size. We ought to have a committee to make a survey, see what can be done about it.
We're pretty busy, Sam. Just running our own business.
I've got more committee meetings now than I can attend, and what good are they?
I'll tell you. Just a minute. Here it is. Last year, there were more than 30,000 people killed in motor vehicle accidents in this country. And according to past records, if it hadn't been for the work of safety committees in many communities, the figure would have been thousands more. But if we had safety committees in other places, that figure could have been thousands less.
Oh, Colonel, speaking of thousands...
Hey, now, just a minute. Listen to this. Every year, we waste these lives simply because some communities are not trying as hard as the others. And we're one of them.
Colonel, I've been hearing some ugly rumors about you.
Utterly without foundation. What are they?
You're keeping Eddie from becoming a grandfather.
Don't rush him. That wedding's going to cost me money.
I'm giving the kid a partnership one of these days. What the heck? He's only 20.
Colonel, I saw Billy taking that curve at High Point the other day. If he doesn't slow down, 20 may be as old as he'll ever get.
Oh, nuts. Sam, sometime you're going to make me really mad.
Maybe if the Colonel had seen Bill at that moment, he would have agreed with Sam.
Well, Mr. Williams, did we win?
Win what?
The race, of course. We were in one, surely.
Oh, here we go again. Lecture number 365, Series A, subject...
I know what the subject is. And it's not a lecture. Just 3 words. Driving too fast. Oh, Bill, is every street a racetrack to you?
What, are you on the doc's payroll now?
I don't think that's very funny. Maybe if you found me stretched out on a highway someplace.
That's not very funny either. Oh, look, honey, it's a beautiful day. And, gosh, we got half of it left. A lunch basket full of food and, well, each other, huh?
Oh, Bill, if you don't...
Look, we'll make a deal. You drive home 20 miles an hour, stop twice for all safety. Okay?
Okay, it's a deal. Must you do everything so fast?
Bill and Mary, just kids. And it was spring, that lazy season. But to Sam, today was just like yesterday, and tomorrow just like today. For him, only one season. Open season on jaywalkers, thoughtless drivers, everyone who broke a safety rule of any kind while he was around.
Look, I'm in a hurry. I'm taking a shortcut. Come on.
But like Doc said, the lack of consideration wasn't all on the part of the pedestrian. Some drivers needed a lesson, too.
Hey! Don't you have a safety program where you work?
Sure, a good one. We haven't had a lost time accident in 14 months. Why?
Well, do you leave your brains in the plant when the whistle blows? Huh? You came out of that driveway without looking either way, and you got 4 other men in your car. You ought to think of them. Each of us ought to be his brother's keeper.
You need a keeper yourself, brother.
In my book, Tom, the man's right.
Oh,
Even at the lunch club, we'd gotten good and tired of Sam's obsessions. Yes, we could write him like that every day.
Here, Doc.
Oh, thanks, Abe.
All right, Sam?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I'm all right. Well, Ace, I guess that must seem pretty amusing to you. Sometimes little tricks like that can be mighty serious. Falls are dangerous. In fact, falls are the second biggest cause of accidental deaths. Traffic accidents first, then after traffic accidents comes falls, then drowning, then burns, and so forth down to poison. Now that comes from taking the wrong bottle or letting the kids get at them. I always tell my patients to wrap a piece of adhesive tape right over the top of the bottle. Now, under traffic accidents, speeding is the worst. Then driving on the wrong side and drunken drivers. Way over half the pedestrians killed last year were definitely in the wrong. Most of them were killed jaywalking. And burns. Nearly 5,000 people killed that way in their homes every year. Like kindling a fire with kerosene. More people get...
Sam, look up something in your book for me, will you?
Yes.
Find out how many fatal accidents are caused by sticking your nose in other people's business.
Hello, Dad.
Oh, hello, Bill. Why aren't you on your way? I thought I told you to go out to High Point. Oh, it's plain as the nose on your face.
And what's the matter with his nose, please? I think it's a very nice nose. In fact, I'm thinking of marrying it.
Listen, Mary, you'll marry that beautiful nose when I say so. Not until then.
We might elope. How do you know Dr. Atwill isn't buying that ladder for us this minute?
More likely giving that poor guy a safety lecture.
And they fit right on there, you see, so that when you have a little uneven spot, both feet of your ladder have a firm grip. You can get them in any hardware store. Much obliged, Mac. But I've been climbing ladders for 20 years now, and I ain't fell off once. Yet. You wouldn't believe it if I told you how many people were killed every year just from falls. Oh, yeah? Now, that's just exactly what I told him had happened.
Oh, rats. Mary, is your father in?
Yes.
I want to see him.
Can we drop you any place, Dr. Atwill? Bill and I are going out to High Point.
High Point? Yes, Dad wants me to...
Never mind, Bill.
Well, thank you, Mary. Billy, yes, I'll ride out. I'm going that way.
Yeah, give him a thrill, Bill.
take him up to 10 miles an hour, you old fossil. you.
Here, we can cross here. Hurry.
Here, lady! Crossing right in the middle of the block.
Right in front of the sign, too.
Well, at least there was no harm done this time. Yep, some harm was done. When she teaches her own child disrespect for the law like that, who's she gonna blame when he grows up and breaks other laws? Like robbery or worse.
Ed, we got a crackpot loose in this town.
More than one, I suspect.
Yeah, but this one's getting to be a confounded nuisance.
Who, Sam? Oh, he's harmless.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first. You know what he's done now? He's got him putting up danger signs. There's a big ugly one right at the curb near my house.
Well, that's a dangerous spot. That's where his wife was killed.
Sure, but that isn't going to bring her back. And look what it does to my view. $800 I spent for a picture window. And what do I see through it? The whole landscape's a mess. And this safety committee, now he's trying to get a speed zone on 51 all the way to High Point. You think I want the cops prowling the highway out to the nightclub?
Nightclub? Being a little previous, aren't you? Sam keeps calling at the hospital. He's got more than half his funds pledged, you know.
In 6 months, and 1 week to get the rest. No, I'm sending Bill out there right now to take some measurements. I'll have my workman in there a week from Monday. He hasn't got a chance, but the old fool doesn't know when to stop. I'll bet right now he's giving Bill a safety lesson.
That was a school zone, Billy. Didn't you see that sign?
Well, yes, but the kids are all inside now. Well, where did he come from?
Well, now, that's just the point, Billy. That sign back there says 20 miles an hour, and it doesn't say, except when you think maybe the coast is clear.
I know.
Long ago, Billy, I figured me out a list of sure things when I'm driving. In town, there's always some little kid gonna run right out in the middle of the street. And in the country, there's always some car coming up the other side of the hill. And at every railroad track, there's a train coming. And at every crossroad, some fool's gonna come out without stopping.
That's pretty good. Well, where do you think you're going, Buster? Another guy probably hurrying home to read the funnies. Now, what good did that do him to risk his neck? He's only one car ahead of where he would have been anyway.
Yeah, that's true, Billy. But I want to commend you. As soon as you saw him pulling around, you slowed down to give him a chance, even before he thought he was going to need it.
Yeah, sometimes I think I'm a sap to do it.
You're not being a sap, honey. You're just a gentleman.
Look at him. Probably sitting there thinking to himself, well, I got away with it again.
Maybe. And maybe he's thinking that's a pretty decent fella back there. If he hadn't slowed up to let me in here, I'd be in a ditch right now and all my own fault.
There, you see, Bill?
But whether he's thinking one or the other, what difference does it make to you? You know, there'll always be two kinds of people in this world. The foolhardy and the level-headed, who have to look out for both of them. You just happen to be one of the right sort, Billy. You see, some people grow up at one age and some another, and some never do. But it's a wonderful feeling inside you when you do, and when you realize that you are your brother's keeper. That's why it's so necessary that we organize something that'll teach people to think of safety all the time, not just after it's too late. I'll get out the next corner, Billy. You know, the schools are doing a mighty fine job these days. If we could just do as well with the adults. Now, Billy, remember this. Safety rules are signals, just like the ones in your head that warn you not to put your hands in a fire. Every signal just simply says, watch yourself. There might be something up the road that'll hurt you, or watch yourself. You might be among stupid people.
I know, Doc, but Dad says I've got to get out to High Point and back to the hotel before he finishes lunch. He said...
Now, wait a minute. Too far. You can't make it. Now, you take your time, and I'll tell your father you're going to be late. Now, Billy, don't try it.
Like I told you before, Ed, it's just plain interference with a man's right to make a living.
Hope I haven't held anybody up. I got a message for you, Colonel. Billy's going to be a little late.
Late? I told him not to be late.
Well, I told him I'd explain it to you.
And I suppose you told him to go ahead and be late, too.
No.
Confound it, Sam. You've got no right to interfere with my raising my own son.
I didn't mean to interfere. It was... Colonel, the cover. Don't light the matches without closing the
cover.
Colonel, that was uncalled for.
It was called for. He's had plenty of time to get over it, Ed. Besides, he doesn't even know who did it, so let him keep his personal troubles to himself.
Sam, the colonel didn't mean that.
I know who it was killed my wife. You did, Colonel. You, Ace. Ed, you helped. So did I. Millions of others. Ruth wasn't run over by a car. She was killed by a state of mind. Your state of mind. Be allowed to interfere in the lives of other people. I got no call to tell you how to strike a match, or how fast to drive, or when to stay sober. You think you've been pretty lucky all your life. Not very many accidents have happened to you out of all them that could have. So what right have I to interfere, you say? What right have I to try to tell you that one split second can wipe out all your 50 years of luck? What right have I to try to tell you Of all the years you'll spend begging God to give you just one more chance to run through your life, and you'll try to make it come out right. Now you say I'm interfering with your son, Billy. Well, I don't know. Maybe I am. I've done that before. There's Walter Andrews back there. I interfered with your son, didn't I, Walt? I buried him. What they were able to get out of his hot rod with torches. Pete Winkler, you see what's leaning against the wall besides him? Pete, when you were still able to farm, I interfered with your life, didn't I? I had to leave your leg under an overturned tractor. Just because when you drove out of your farm driveway, you didn't stop and look. You wouldn't have wanted that leg anymore anyway. There's Jake. You all know him, one of our skilled machinists. Wouldn't wear his goggles. I took 5 slivers of steel out of his eyes, or what were his eyes. Yep, this is quite a roll call, isn't it? Everybody here to see old Doc Atwill make a fool of himself. No, not everybody. There's Mrs. Brown sitting there eating all by herself. Colonel, you know where her husband is. I interfered in his life, too. But you don't call that interference. Not when you send for old Doc Atwill and he comes with his little black bag and tries to patch together the wreckage of a life, or a whole family, for that matter, after the damage has been done. You don't call that interference. But when I merely suggest that we all change our state of mind so that we may live safer lives, you call that interference. You say, I got no right to do that. Well, who had the right to interfere with my Ruth's life? Who had the right to snatch 35 years of happiness away from me? Smear it all over with mud and blood. Who had that right? And now, Billy, you say I interfered with him. Well, he's late, isn't he? It's his time, and you told him to hurry. Which did he do?
Is Colonel Williams here?
Well, yeah, he's right over there at that big table.
Thank you. Well, that did it. That was Colonel Williams who took that matchbook away from you when we came in.
Not Dr. Atwill.
No, he's usually out at the Memorial Hospital at High Point. You see, the Colonel raised the rest of the endowment in 1 week.
As a memorial to his son.
Not exactly. There's Bill and Mary over there. You can see what happened to him.
She's like a wolf when she's at home, huh? No way she doesn't eat now.
Well, what did the trooper want then?
He came in to report that the old Harrison estate at High Point was on fire. The fire department on its way out there.
Well, how do you like that?
The Colonel knew when public opinion had turned against him. In fact, he became chairman of our safety committee. One of the first things he classes in our schools. How much do you think it takes to sell an idea that's right in the first place?
Well, I wouldn't know. About other people.
that time. All right, come on, let's get the lead out of that.
Give him a chance. What do you hear?
Any day. All right, let's go.
Hey, Daddy, you forgot your lunch, too.
Never get this turn on time yet. Oh, what's it doing? Look at that. It's made it. But I just go for it.
Come on, you be late.
Cigarette, have Mike?
Sam? Yeah, thanks, bud. Cheers.
Yeah. Oh, watch what you're doing, will you?
Oh, Mike must be broke lately. Broke.
Look at that, baby. There you are.
What's the matter with you? Can't you wait your turn?
I don't wait for nothing. I take what I want. You're Mr. Franklin, Personnel Director. The Secretary said I'd find you here. I'm Fred Jarvis, Rehabilitation Bureau.
I'm mighty glad to meet you. I've been expecting you. We had talked on the phone today. While you're here, can I take you around the plant a little bit?
I would like that.
Fine, let's go this way here.
Glad you out here, Mr. Jarvis. I don't know what's eating Lambert here, but all of a sudden he hauls off and hits that safety man. We've had enough of that sort of thing around here, Lambert. And I just told him, Mr. Jarvis, as of right now, you're suspended pending inquiry.
You better go to the dispensary.
All right, the show's over. All you other men, get back to work.
I'm telling you, the guy's nuts. I've been telling these guys for a couple of weeks now. They ought to put him away, lock the door, and throw away the key. Oh, look at him, he's nuts, I'm telling you. That man there who was just suspended, has he been with you long?
Yes, 14 years. I've just been looking over his record.
Was he a good worker?
Yes, and not easily replaced. As a matter of fact, we'll probably have to fire him. There's nothing else to do in a case like this. But let's talk about you. I understand you're from the Rehabilitation Service.
That's right. Here's my card.
Well, attached to a mental hospital.
Yes, Mr. Franklin. My job is to place in employment or reemployment those recovered patients released from the hospital.
No good, rotten tramp. Thought I wouldn't catch you, didn't you, huh? Well, today I'm home early.
out with another man. Haven't you?
Let me go!
Go on, run, you no good street woman! Turn the other men's friends, go on!
Dr. Mitchell. This is Mary Lambert. Please come over here quickly. I'm acting crazy. I don't know what's the matter with him, but he's never acted like this before in his whole life. Please come.
Bud, what's the matter? Stay right there. It isn't like you. You're a sick man. I'll try to help this thing, Ron. You'll have to go to the hospital. Hospital? Yes, Bud. Come on, let me help you, Bud. He's on his way. He's had a sedative and is resting nicely. Oh, you could expect him within an hour. Yes, I'll be mailing my report by tomorrow. Very well. Thank you. Goodbye.
First staff meeting, Mr. Lambert has been provisionally diagnosed as schizophrenia with paranoidal tendencies. A physical examination and routine laboratory tests are underway. The day he came to the hospital, Mr. Lambert had had some trouble at work. He stated that the foreman had become difficult, started finding fault with his work.
They're watching. I know they're watching. Always watching. But where? Who could it be? Stop. It's the safety man. The one guy doing wrong. All of it. He's the one.
Patient at first refused to eat and became dehydrated. Intravenous feeding was initiated. Intensive psychotherapy has been started. During the past month, Mr. Lambert has shown improvement. He's beginning to trust me now. Is talking much more freely and is much more responsive. Occupational Therapy Department, Miss Marshall, this is Dr. Claymore. Remember my talking to you about Mr. Lambert? I was wondering, have you found a job that would make him feel important? Well, he's ready for it now. Fine, I'll be bringing him over. Bye. Miss Marshall, this is Mr. Lambert.
How do you do, Mr. Lambert? I'm very glad to have you in the shop.
I was telling Mr. Lambert you have a job for him.
I certainly do, Dr. Claymore. The records show that Mr. Lambert has had experience in loons, and I'm just hoping that he's going to be able to help us out of a tight spot. We haven't been able to get this loon balanced for months. How about it? Hey. Oh.
You mustn't be very bright. You got any decent tools around here? Well, you and the kids miss me, huh?
Miss you? Of course we do. Mostly during those long nights. Oh, honey, it'll be so wonderful to have you back home with us again. And the children will be so happy.
Well, what makes you think I'm coming home so soon, Mary?
Well, because every time I see the social worker, she tells me that the doctor says you're improving. Better and better all the time.
The patient continues to show improvement, and it is my opinion that he is ready to appear before social planning staff for consideration of a trial visit home. The patient is now willing to assume a new learning role, which should mean much toward giving him ego support. This is quite significant regarding proof of recovery. Within a few days, I will confer with Rehabilitation Service about the possibility of simulating a work situation here in the hospital.
Dr. Claymore, I think a surprisingly good job has been done with Bud Lambert, and I hear that you're scheduling him tomorrow before the social planning staff for his final appearance regarding his trial visit home.
Yes, we're all very pleased with his progress. I think we can thank the entire staff, particularly Miss Marshall in occupational therapy. She's done an excellent job with Bud. You'd be interested in knowing a couple of his friends are over there now. I think fellows he worked at the plant with.
Hey, is this the loan you fixed, Bud?
Yeah.
Ah, good job. Very good job.
Take a look at that, Hank.
Oh, say, did you make this, Bud? Well, that's very good. Just say that, Sam. Isn't that good?
Hey,
Yeah.
when the foreman hears about this, he's liable to move you up front, Bud. You know, the job around that blonde Maisie.
Yeah, you remember.
I've always said you want.
No, right now I want a job. Any job. Get back home again.
Back with you guys.
Well, that's what we want, too. That's what we want, too. Say, what's this?
That's for the dance tonight.
Dance?
Yeah.
You mean girls?
Sure.
Girls. Say, Bud, how long before I can get in this hotel?
Guys, now.
You really believe he'll make it? You think the staff will recommend his release?
Well, that all depends on how he handles himself at the staff meeting.
Oh, you mean, for example, how he would answer a question? You're sick again. What would you do?
That's right. Now it's up to Mr. Lambert. In the meantime, I haven't been bothering him about it. Right now, he's over there putting the finishing touches on his costume for the masquerade they're having tonight. You know, he certainly is a lot better when he can show this much interest.
For the information of the new members of the staff, I should like to call attention again to the basic principle that the hospital operates as a team. The patient is considered fully recovered only when he is working successfully back on the job. There is a good chance our first patient will be one we can call fully recovered. It looks that way from what I have read in this clinical record. Dr. Claymore, will you present Mr. Lambert?
As you recall, the patient has been before our staff a number of times. However, during the past 2.5 months, he's demonstrated appreciable insight. On the basis of this, I would now like to recommend his release from the hospital for a trial visit home.
Do we all concur in this recommendation? Dr. Barnes, as staff psychologist, what is your conclusion after having seen Mr. Lambert?
All psychological studies indicate that this patient has more ability than he's ever had the opportunity to use. This, of course, is a very frustrating situation. It's my opinion that he will not only be able to return to his former job, but in time he may even be able to assume supervisory responsibility. I would concur with Dr. Claymore's recommendation.
Miss Brennan, as Mr. Lambert's social worker, what are the attitudes of the family and of the community concerning the possibility of Mr. Lambert's return home?
I've talked with Mrs. Lambert a number of times. The family was under considerable financial pressure following Mr. Lambert's admission to the hospital, and we helped Mrs. Lambert secure financial assistance through the social agencies in her community. Mrs. Lambert has been greatly relieved to learn that her husband's accusation of her was but a symptom of his illness. She seems much more understanding of him now and is looking forward to the possibility of his returning home. As for the community, Mr. Lambert has been most fortunate. His minister has visited him often. His work associates have kept in touch with him. And even the school principal, whom I talked with concerning one of the children who was upset about his father, has become interested in the family.
Miss Brennan, how does Mr. Lambert feel about attending our outpatient clinic in his own community in the event he leaves the hospital?
I've talked this over with Mr. Lambert, and he seems glad for the opportunity to attend our outpatient clinic.
Mr. Jarvis, what are the chances of Mr. Lambert's getting his old job back?
I'm seeing the personnel director for a final decision within the next few days.
Ask Mr. Lambert to come in. Good morning, Mr. Lambert. Sit down, please. We're hearing nice things about you. Isn't that true, Miss Marshall?
Mr. Lambert's been our right-hand man. He's been able to get all our equipment in good shape. And besides that, he's had time to try his hand at half the crafts in the shop. I don't know how he's done it.
Well, I never thought I'd learn anything from a woman, but there you are. I sure lost up that last job, didn't I?
Mr. Lambert, we're thinking seriously of sending you home. What do you think of the idea?
Think of it. I could take care of my family again. Be with my wife and my children. Go back to work. Well, that is, if I can find a job. Doctor, I'd be coming back to life again. I wasn't only sick when I came here. My mind was all fogged up. Since I've been here, you people have helped me to see and to feel myself again. I think I can see daylight ahead.
If you should have a return of those same feelings and moods, what would you do?
What would I do? I'd be sick again. If I was sick again, I'd need a doctor. Dr. Claymore, would you take me back as a patient?
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Lambert?
No.
That's all, thank you. Dr. Claymore will talk with you later.
Thank you.
I think we will all agree that the patient seems quite well. He has insight into his previous illness. He has accepted the need for care and treatment. He appears willing to accept help in the future if necessary. His leaving the hospital will depend upon two factors. One, the readiness of his family to take him back. Two, the availability of a job. That means another visit by the social worker to his wife. Also remains conditional upon Mr. Jarvis being able to get Mr. Lambert's old position back or else a new one. For the record, on the receipt of satisfactory reports from the social worker and from Mr. Jarvis, a date may be set when Mr. Lambert may return home. Granted a leave of absence during this trial period.
I wanted to have this talk with you, Mrs. Lambert, since the doctors feel that your husband is now ready to leave the hospital. I think you will agree he is much improved. He's been working now for some while here at the hospital at a job similar to his previous work. How do you feel about his returning home? Are you ready for this?
Ready. Oh, I think it's wonderful. I can hardly wait. Bud's been telling me about all he's been doing here, how he'll be going to the outpatient clinic in our town when he gets back. Oh, Miss Brennan, I can't thank you enough. The children will be so happy.
We've been looking forward to your return at the church. I saw the choir director yesterday, and he said that he's been holding a place for you in the choir. I suppose you still sing baritone? Yes, I sure do. Maybe a little more mellow. Thanks for all the good you've done for me. All of you. It sure has helped a lot.
Mr. Jarvis, you and I have had a series of conferences. I don't know what to say. I really don't. Well, first, Bud Lambert is able to do his job. You said he was a good worker before he was sick. And now we have been able to observe, through test situations and an actual trial work program within the hospital, that there hasn't been any significant loss of skill as related to his old job. Quite probably, a good bit of this man's frustration is that he was capable of doing much more than he had ever done before. It's even possible in this case, as our psychologist has brought out, that at some future date he may be able to assume even more responsibility. We can't always say this, for often we can only recommend reemployment where the job demands have been scaled down, possibly under changed working conditions. But in Bud Lambert's case, is a skilled and valuable worker able to do his job. Once again, he is steady and reliable.
I'm not convinced.
Mr. Franklin, you know what Bud Lambert has said to me? He said, if I can't be rehired on this job on the basis of my ability to do the job, then I'll take a little longer, and I'll look elsewhere. And he said, I don't want pity.
Did he really say that?
Okay, we'll take him back.
For thy gracious blessings, O Lord, we give thee grateful thanks. Amen.
And for the sun, the earth, the air, for friends also, we give thanks. Don't know if I can really make it. How can I face that job tomorrow morning? Facing that murking big mic. Don't know if I'm really worthy of such a fine wife. Maybe I ought to go back to the hospital. They said I could. Try again later, some other time. I feel so shaky. Morning never comes.
They didn't see our old gang again. Yeah, won't so? Come on now, let's get it going. Come on, on me. Cigarette?
There you go, Sam.
Sure, thanks, Bud.
Say, this is like old times.
Yeah, like old times. Hey, just like old times.
Yeah, it's almost like old times, but better.
Yeah, much better. Oh, thanks a lot.
but it's good to be back. That foreman is such a friendly guy. Everything seems so right. Can anything ever shake me again? What do you know? Wonder how long this is going to last. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Today, we live in an environment of stress and tension. People who live in our culture, and especially those who live in large cities, are constantly being subjected to stress in their daily lives. Conservative estimates indicate that more than 50% of all patients who come to the office of a doctor suffer primarily from tension symptoms resulting from the stress of modern living. A rubber band, when stretched, has been subjected to stress. A steel girder has a stress factor. If too great a stress were placed upon this girder, it would bend or break. In the human organism, stress to which it cannot adapt results in exhaustion, disease, or death. Unfortunately, the path of stress is a subtle one, and unlike infectious disease, there is no immediate external manifestation. In the normal and healthy individual, stress is met by adaptive responses, and the organism returns safely to homeostasis or equilibrium. But if the stress is too severe or too prolonged, the organism is unable to adapt and reaches a stage of exhaustion, which may end in death. If tensions from stress situations continue uncontrolled, structural changes, which we call disease, can take place in the body. Such structural changes manifest themselves in illnesses like stomach ulcers, heart trouble, cancer, arteriosclerosis, female disorders, arthritis, and the various degenerative diseases of our time. Tension from daily stress situations is usually so common that it is overlooked and considered quite natural and in keeping with everyday living. Optimum tension enables the organism to do work, but stress beyond this point is destructive. A man is developing tension while waiting to use the telephone. He also wants to catch a bus. The pressure of time and other factors are causing undue tension in this man, which may, after a time, reflect in a serious illness. Stress reflected in mental or emotional conflicts gives us the behavior patterns of crime and juvenile delinquency, of divorce and broken homes. of wars and interracial hatreds. And it fills the office of the psychiatrist with neurotic and psychotic patients. So that we can better understand the relationship between adaptive mechanisms and disease, we will trace some of the experiences of a patient taken from actual files. This is George Mark. He is 37 years old, the father of a son, and a victim of stress. Often it is not until stress from malnutrition, overwork, and other factors results in a structural illness do we do anything about it, as we shall see in the case of Mark, whose long history of stress has been related to his emotional problems. After driving crowded speedways to reach the outskirts of town where he has his home, Mark should look forward to relaxing with his wife and child. Actually, he has reached the point where his fatigue at the end of the day is so great he can enjoy nothing. Even such simple daily routines as washing his hands or shaving have become a strain. Mark's hands have begun to ache, and he's aware of the tension in the lines of his face. There are many times when Mark's appetite is poor and food tasteless. Another symptom of strain. Many nights are spent in restless twisting and turning. Sometimes sleepless for hours, Mark thinks of his problems and the pain symptoms from which he now suffers. Only when he can no longer face the problems of daily living does Mark make the decision to see a doctor. Because of the nature of his symptoms, Mark's family doctor has referred him to a specialist in diagnosis and chronic illness, a doctor of internal medicine. The modern internist is interested in everything about his patient. Besides a thorough physical examination, x-rays, and laboratory tests, he will ask many questions about Mark's social and emotional history and the ways with which he copes with his various problems. Mark, like most patients who come to the doctor's office, is interested mainly in his symptoms. He is not yet aware that these symptoms are only part of a total pattern of tension. This does not mean, however, that the pain and stiffness in Mark's neck, the cramping and swelling in his hands, his fatigue and sleeplessness are not important. A description of those symptoms are part of the information that the doctor needs from his patient, as well as what he sees in taking a blood pressure reading, listening to his patient's heart, giving a physical examination, or watching the lines of tension and the biting of the lips which Mark exhibits. The doctor will start his patient off with a series of examinations. In the laboratory, the nurse will take a sample of blood from the tip of Mark's finger and another from his arm, so that various blood chemistry tests can be made. Blood chemistry is of basic importance in diagnosis and will indicate, among other things, the presence or absence of infection, metabolic balance or imbalance. Already, Mark feels less tense. Something's being done for him, and he can talk more easily and smile back at the nurse. The establishing of a balanced chemistry by means of metabolic and nutritional supplements is a major step toward tissue building and sound health. Because Mark has complained of stiffness and pain in the back of his neck and in his hands, x-rays will be recommended to determine the presence or extent of structural changes which may already have taken place. Mark is asked to take a personality test to evaluate some of his emotional problems, and then an occupational interest inventory to see whether he is suited to his present work, because dissatisfaction with his job may be causing part of his tension. In the patient whose history we are following here, the emotional conflicts have contributed the major part of the long-term stress, which has resulted in the symptoms of tension, and finally, in the structuralized illness, for which he sought the services of a doctor.
When I was a kid, we lived in a small house in the outskirts of a factory area.
I was as active as the other kids in the neighborhood, but I was punished whenever I made any noise. My mother was good to me and sympathetic when my father gave me a hiding, but usually she seemed more interested in housework and particularly in cooking and her recipes. Dad slept most of the day because he worked a night shift. He raised the devil if I woke him up, and I was afraid of him most of the time. I remember one time when my friend and I began fighting over a ball. He'd taken advantage of my having to be so quiet. As usual, I was ordered to sit in a chair until my father got up. In my restlessness and fear of what my father would do to me, I'd wander around the house looking for something to do. Usually, I'd get myself into more trouble. I didn't mean to, it just happened that way. I intended to run away and never come back.
As we go on, we will see how the impressions and attitudes Mark learned as a child are carried over to adulthood. He becomes like the father whom he resented. Like a lot of other Americans, Mark has had problems with his work and for a time found it difficult to get work at all. Mark's first employment after coming back from the service was a routine clerical job which did not tax his resources. But he was reacting badly to stress situations at home. Mark's patterns of behavior are so rigid that he may find it difficult to understand that his impatience with his wife and his disturbances over his child are stress tension factors which have contributed to the structural changes taking place in his body. Mark does not yet realize that his tensions are making his family tense as well. He has to control everything, just as he was controlled as a child. Notice how his wife reacts to the stress created by Mark's tension.
I get all tied up inside when my wife doesn't do what I tell her to, or if she keeps me waiting. I don't think I've ever gone to the beach without having to wait for my wife to get out of the kitchen. And my kid's always bothering me.
Mark's child is in the process of learning patterns of defense against tensions from his parents. Even in an environment of relaxation, Mark is unable to relax or move freely in it.
I never really enjoy going to the beach. Ricky's always wandering off. And my wife is always asking for something.
Although the boy disturbs Mark, his needs are only those of the normal, healthy child. Startled by his wife running toward a crowd that has pulled a child out of the surf, he becomes immobilized in the fear that it might be his own boy. Even when he realizes his own child is safe, he cannot relax and express his relief to his wife. The child has again reacted to the tension from his parents.
At the office, it seemed I did all right at first. The people I worked with liked me. I felt pretty much at ease with them. And I was promoted before too long from the clerical job to a more important one, where I had a secretary to do my work. And I had opportunities to make decisions. When a very official inter-office letter was delivered to me, I was sure it was bad news. It was hard for me to realize they had enough confidence in me to offer me a promotion to one of the field offices. But it was true, and I was pleased.
However, instead of finding challenge, stimulation, and satisfaction in his new job, Mark begins to react with his old stereotypes of withdrawal, resentment, and frustration. Given a task by his superior, he is unable to concentrate on what is required and wonders not only whether he is adequate to do the job, but what his supervisor thinks of him. He does not accept greater responsibility with satisfaction, but tends to grow tense and resentful over what he feels as pressure. The constant construction noise strains his nerves. Mark begins to show irritation in dealing with others, and his strain and tension increases. He feels the effects of physical fatigue to a greater extent than the situation warrants. His coordination is affected because his body is less relaxed, and he carries himself in a tense fashion. Under these conditions, slight additional pressure cannot be handled in the usual way. Mark does not have the emotional stability or physical strength to control an unusual stress situation.
It got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. So much noise that I couldn't concentrate on my work. The pain in my neck and shoulders was getting worse. My hands hurt. I was tired when I got to the job and numb when I left. I couldn't take it anymore.
Mark has reacted characteristically by withdrawing from what he cannot control. This sort of history is typical of the arthritic patient. It has been said that arthritis represents repressed rage. The patient literally immobilizes his rage feelings in his arthritis. In this way, he also punishes himself, as he was constantly punished or restrained for his impulses as a child. Each patient suffering from arthritis will, of course, present a different history of stress. Mark typifies the patient with a history of psychogenic or emotogenic stress, reacting with poor controls and self-destructive behavior patterns to control his ever-mounting tensions. The effects of his tension on others causes Mark to feel depressed, thus causing another stress situation and more tension. The doctor has recorded the way his patient has been reacting to the various situations in his life. He now fits this into the clinical observations he has made to form a total picture of the person before him. This is part of the economy of a complete diagnostic summary, on the basis of which recommendations can be made for a constructive program. In the case of Mark, the doctor has found a continual history of stress. Stress as a child, stress at work, stress in his marriage, and now, arthritis. X-rays show the extent of structural change already present. The personality test bears out the other indications that here is a constricted and rigid personality. Mark has not known how to cope with the demands put upon him. In studying the laboratory record, the doctor finds further proof of Mark's condition. The blood chemistry and metabolic studies reflect the tensions and the disease processes already at work. Other findings reflect the blood sugar level, the blood count, the calcium-phosphorus ratio, and other factors. For example, blood sedimentation is very low, showing infection is probably present in the body. In view of the findings from this history, the X-rays, the laboratory reports, and the results of his physical examination, the doctor will recommend a long-term supportive program. This will include an adequate diet, nutritional and metabolic supplements, medications to ease the pain of the current symptoms, and specific treatments such as physiotherapy. While medications to ease pain are only temporary, the doctor nevertheless realizes that pain increases tension, and he will, therefore, not only want to make his patient more comfortable, but knows that the patient will then be more relaxed, and his body can begin its own healing processes. Massage is used to relax the muscles, increase the blood supply, and give the patient a sense of well-being. If he can learn the feeling of being relaxed, he can achieve it for himself through various simple exercises. In another physiotherapy treatment called ultrasound, the vibrations of sound waves far above those which can be heard by the human ear are used to bombard tissues, thus increasing the permeability of the tissues and increasing the blood supply, which then helps to carry away waste products and supply nutrition. There is also a general reaction of the entire nervous system, which results in better functioning. Here, the doctor will administer a high percentage of oxygen mixed with enough carbon dioxide to stimulate the breathing rate, so that the oxygen and carbon dioxide content of the blood will be increased. This type of therapy also encourages a greater supply of blood to the brain and gives the patient a general sense of release from tension. The doctor may also ask that Mark have several sessions with a psychologist or psychiatrist, not only to understand the nature of his illness better in its relation to the stress at home and at work, but in order to learn ways in which he can deal differently with these problems and so reduce his tensions. He may have only 1 or 2 counseling sessions, or long-term psychotherapy may be recommended. In time, Mark is able to live comfortably with his environment. His relationship with his child is normal. An adequate diet and nutritional supplements have built up deficiencies so that his system responds to stress in a more healthy way. Talks with the doctor and the psychologist have given Mark a better understanding of himself, and a more realistic way of dealing with his problems. Because he is more relaxed, others are more relaxed around him. And Mark's child stands a better chance to be healthy, mentally and emotionally, as well as physically. The symptoms of the arthritis for which he came to the doctor have been minimized, and Mark is now functioning at his optimum capacity in his various activities. Because the doctors have looked at Mark as an individual, interacting with an external and internal environment, needing to understand all aspects of himself as a total person, and because they have prescribed treatment directed at many areas of stress, Mark is able to look forward to a happy and relaxed future. By understanding the importance of a total program, modern medicine is now closer to relieving the stress-tension diseases which threaten the world in which we live.
This picture's about an owl. That's me. And a fella named Fred Jones. No, that's not Fred. That's his house. Fred is inside sleeping. Now, I'm not just an ordinary owl. Oh, by the way, this picture's sort of different. Wait a minute. Not that different. That's better. Still better. Even better yet. Here I am, up here. Well, as I was saying, I'm not just an ordinary owl. I'm a student of habit. Been sort of observing people's habits for years. Now, when I say habits, I mean all kinds of habits. Helpful habits, in-between habits, and not-so-helpful habits. Fact is, most people live by habit. You take Fred Jones. Fella lives in the house down there. Good, honest citizen. Head of a family. Just about everything Fred does is by habit. Even the way he sleeps. Now, some of his habits help him. Some of them don't. See what I mean? Let's have a look downstairs. Would you look at that? Breakfast table's even been set the night before. Hat on the chair, letters to be mailed, all there, right by the front door. And the umbrella, in case it rains. Mighty orderly, I'd say. Uh-oh, what's this? Somebody forgot to put away the vacuum. Oh, well. Say, Fred's supposed to be at work by 8:30. Shouldn't he be up by now? Day in, day out, the routine never varies. It isn't that Louise hasn't tried to have breakfast ready, but somehow there just isn't time for much more than a fast cup of coffee. You know, Fred's got some good health habits. He always brushes his teeth after meals. And then he's on his way. Hold it. He forgot something. Let's take a quick look at Fred's day up till now. From the time the alarm goes off, life at the Joneses is mostly a bunch of habits strung together. Another thing Fred has made a habit of is walking part way to work every day. In fact, his routine is so firmly established, he hasn't been late to work for 15 years. Of course, he hasn't eaten any breakfast for 15 years either. That's become sort of a habit, too. Which is maybe why, along about 10:30, he feels sort of all in. Coffee break's a great thing for Fred. Not just because of the coffee, but because those nearby goodies somehow taste so scrumptious. When 12:30 rolls around, punctual Fred Jones always leads his pals to their regular eatery. Here Fred can add to the blue plate with his favorite beverage, the strawberry frosted. On the way out, he invariably lingers at the cashier's desk so he can pick up a little something extra. Sort of a dessert snack. Maybe he'd better make it 2, just in case the pangs of hunger overcome him during the afternoon. But let's take another look back. Even after Fred leaves for the office, it's habit, habit, habit. On the way back from lunch, Fred, as usual, indulges in his harmless little habit of admiring his reflection in the store windows. A mighty handsome figure of a man for a guy his age, especially if you overlook that little bulge at the waistline. Just now, Fred happens to remember that today's the day he goes to see his doctor. He finds it a helpful habit to see him regularly, and he always feels better for having done it. Every once in a while, Fred's good wife, Louise, prepares some special treat for dinner. And tonight, it's one of Fred's super-duper favorites, French fried onion rings. Despite the 2 helpings of meat and potatoes that he's already tucked away, Fred still manages to find room for those ever-loving onion rings, with notable consequences, including drowsiness. Well, it's 11 p.m., and all the lights are out, right on schedule. Oh, just another routine day in the life of Fred Jones. Wait a minute. That's odd. Fred's not in the habit of going for midnight strolls. Something wrong, pal?
Oh, nothing really, I guess.
You went to your doctor today. What did he have to say?
Well, he said there's nothing wrong with me. A change of eating habits wouldn't fix.
Well, then what's bothering you?
Well, I've eaten the same way for years.
Uh-huh.
You know, my system's used to a certain intake. It just couldn't stand any change.
Is that what your doctor said?
Well, not exactly. What he said was I don't need as much to eat as I used to. You know, I'm not as active a guy as I used to be.
Well, then, what's your problem?
Oh, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. A habit's a habit. You can't change it.
No, I've seen lots of people do it.
Well, now, wait a minute.
From my observations, I've noticed that most habits can be changed, even eating habits, if.
If what?
If you know how, if you want to, and if you're willing to work at it.
Sounds impossible. But go on.
The most important thing is you got to be sure you want to.
I'm listening.
Now, most people who succeed in changing their habits devote some time to thinking about it. Takes a little time to find out whether you really want to change a habit or not, because it's not going to be easy.
Uh-huh.
And a list is very helpful.
A list?
Sure. Many people make themselves a list. On one side, it's got what they like about the habit they're trying to change, and on the other side, the things they don't like about it.
Well, this list, what do they do with it?
They carry it around with them, keep looking at it and thinking about it until S Day.
S Day?
Sure, S Day, start day. That's the day you pick to start the habit change.
Why a special day?
Oh, that's important. People find it best to start their campaign when the time is ripe for it. Picking a start day gets you underway with more momentum. You know what I mean?
Seems to make sense. Certainly no harm in just thinking about it. Oh, hey, I'm not in the habit of staying up this late. I gotta be going. Well, see you later.
So long, Fred. See you on S Day. I don't know. Maybe he will make up his mind, and then again, maybe he won't. Well, Fred did think about it, and he talked it over with Louise. Soon afterwards, he decided to make a little list of the things he liked about overeating and the things he didn't like. After a few days of adding to the lists and thinking them over, he came to realize how much more important the don't likes were to him than the do likes. He thought about it so much, he even remembered where he'd hidden that diet plan his doctor had given him. And he tacked up a weighing schedule near the bathroom scales. The more he thought about it, the readier he became for S Day, Monday the 8th, 7 a.m. Wait a minute. What in Sam Hill is Fred up to? Better see if I can help. What's the trouble, Fred?
Oh, I don't know. This isn't as easy as I thought.
Oh, I meant to tell you about that, Fred. One thing at a time. Don't try to change your entire way of living all at once. I never saw anybody finish yet who started out that way. Relax, Fred. It's eating habits you're trying to change. Nothing else.
Maybe you're right.
When coffee break time came at the office that day, Fred brought his coffee back to the desk. Even though he'd had breakfast, a part of his new campaign, he was staying a safe distance from the goodies. But then, quite unexpectedly, the goodies came to him. Oh, it was a tough situation, and Fred was sort of looking around for help. No exceptions, Fred. No exceptions. That's probably the most important thing to remember about changing habits. You're just kidding yourself when you say, oh, just this once won't matter, because it does. Every time you resist, you're not only helping to defeat the old habit, you're forming a new one.
What if I,
Make an occasional slip?
Yeah.
Well, all is not lost, but it prolongs the process, makes the whole thing a little tougher on you. After a week of lunches without strawberry frosteds, Fred really felt he was making progress. But he wondered what further steps he could take. Yep, coming along pretty good, Fred. Fact is, when most people get this far, they find they're ready for a little on-purpose self-testing.
Self-testing? What do you mean by that?
You know, Fred. Tempt yourself. Oh, I know it sounds silly, but it helps prepare you for future temptations. After Fred thought it over, he tried it out. As each day of his campaign goes by, Fred notices he's feeling better and looking better. Strangely, he finds it takes less food to satisfy him. Yes, sir. That new habit is working for him. And Louise has been a big help throughout Fred's campaign. He's come a long way. Uh-oh. Look who's arriving in a fancy car, totally unexpected. It's Louise's brother, Ernie, her eatin' brother. Just drove in from the big city, hungry as a bear. Well, Ernie's not going to put anybody out. No, sirree. The whole family's going out to dinner on him. And guess where he's going to take them? Gourmet's Grotto, where calorie is king. Now, a few months ago, Fred couldn't have passed up pâté de foie gras, the world's biggest Caesar salad, French fried onion rings, and French pastry. But tonight, he's almost enjoying himself on half the calories he used to want. Even with big-hearted Ernie picking up the check, he just doesn't seem to want the fanciest items on the menu. Tonight, Fred's having orange sherbet for dessert and liking it. Yep, Fred's on pretty solid ground now, and he can be proud of himself. But he's still got to stay on guard. He'll need to keep up the momentum that got him off to such a wonderful start on S-Day. For some time, still, he's going to keep on using that list in his wallet. He'll probably add some things to it, too. Even though he suspects it wouldn't do any harm, he won't allow a single exception to occur. He'll keep testing himself with small, new temptations from time to time. And he'll enjoy the satisfaction of overcoming each one. And he'll concentrate on one habit change at a time, till he's sure he's ready for another one. The other members of the family are impressed with the way Fred has carried this thing through. And they may have learned something that will be helpful to them personally. Like? Don't like. Like. Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm starting one of those lists myself. Yes, sirree.
Looks like these kids are going to have some fun, doesn't it? If I'm not mistaken, they're heading for a picnic. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't anything any more fun. What do you think? I remember the games and the races and prizes, and best of all, so many good things to eat. Hot dogs, ice cream, watermelon, cake. Makes my mouth water just to think of it. I'd sure hate to be left out when the gang's going on a picnic, wouldn't you? Well, it's too bad, but somebody is. Jimmy can't go. You see, Jimmy did something very foolish yesterday, and he hurt himself. So now he has to miss the picnic, after looking forward to it for weeks. Too bad. But it seems like almost every time we don't use our heads and we take chances on getting hurt or getting sick, we lose out on a lot of fun. That's exactly what happened to Jimmy. You see, yesterday, Jimmy was playing touch football. That's a swell game when you're careful. But when you don't look where you're going, you can really get hurt, like Jimmy did. It's a good thing we aren't all like Jimmy, isn't it? Because when we watch where we're going, we won't fall or do like Jimmy and run into something. It's silly to take a chance like that, don't you think? Let's look at some others. Here's one, a rusty nail, and believe me, it's dangerous. Now, we all know it's a lot of fun to go barefoot, but not where there's a chance to step on a rusty nail or broken glass. Hey, look out, son. You're getting near those. Be careful. Oh, too late he did it. Now, who could be such a fool as to go barefoot in a place like that? Jimmy again. That kid's taking an awful chance. You know what you can get from a rusty nail or broken glass? Lockjaw. And if you don't think that's bad, ask your mother or your teacher. Do you suppose Jimmy's finally managed to get out of trouble? You can't be taking a chance eating a hot dog, can you? No, not eating a hot dog. But if you go in swimming right after eating, that's a different story. Why? Because you're liable to get a cramp. It's like a red-hot poker jammed into you. It hurts so bad you can't do a thing to help yourself. Well, Jimmy's lucky again. The lifeguard happened to be watching. If he hadn't, Jimmy might have drowned. All because he forgot and went swimming too soon after eating. Always wait at least 1 hour after eating before going in the water. This gives your stomach enough time to digest the food. All boys and girls like dogs, but if you suddenly stick out your hand at one before he has a chance to get acquainted or see you, he may bite you. Make friends with a dog like this boy. Put your hand out to him slowly, with your fist closed, so he can use his nose to see who you are. And above all, when a dog is eating, he doesn't like to have anyone pet him. Remember, Jimmy, pets are fine if they belong to you or your friends. But we know it's too risky to fool around with stray dogs or cats. It's a good thing all kids aren't like Jimmy. If they were, their mothers and fathers would never know what to expect. Now look what he's done. Talked his friends into digging a cave in the hillside. Well, what's wrong with that, somebody might ask? After all, miners do it, and well diggers dig holes. Sure they do, but they realize it's dangerous. They brace up the walls with heavy beams and planks. They don't want to get buried in a cave-in. See what I mean? If they don't work fast now, Jimmy's going to be smothered. boys and girls, it doesn't pay. It's too dangerous. If we dig holes or caves, we're taking a chance on being caught by a cave-in. Not only holes and caves, anywhere that there's a chance of getting caught where you can't get out. Places like an old well or any hole in the ground. Where men are working. Or a manhole or culvert. There are plenty of places and ways to play that aren't dangerous. But back to our friends. That looks like a game of hide and seek. Fun, huh? And it looks like Jimmy's going to keep out of trouble for once. He can't get into anything because he's it. No, Jimmy's all right. But I'm not so sure about Marcia. Oh, no. Well, it'll still be all right if they can just find her. Too bad. That one girl might have found her if Jimmy hadn't stopped her. They all think Marcia's gone home. They don't know she's trapped in that old icebox and can't get out. It was an hour before Marcia's mother called the police, and they finally found her. It was almost too late. There was only a little bit of air in that icebox. If they'd been a few minutes later, Marcia might have died. Nothing like this will ever happen to any of us because we've learned from what happened to Marcia. So far, we've seen all the wrong things. Is there anything wrong with flying a kite? No, not when a bright kid does it. It's real fun. A good kite flyer picks an open field with no trees or houses. He uses string, not wire, because he knows if his kite fell on a power line, it might cause a short circuit, or he might even be electrocuted. I think everybody but Jimmy knows by now how foolish it is to play in the street or run out without looking. That applies to kite flying, too. It's no good flying a kite in the rain, either. You see, when the string gets wet, it conducts electricity. And you know what might happen? Get the point? I thought you would. It's no fun being struck by lightning. I don't know whether Jimmy's lost his kite or what, but he's really asking for trouble climbing a power or telephone pole. Maybe he thinks he's a pretty good climber, but even if he is, one of two things may happen. If he doesn't fall, he may touch a power line. And I can tell you that isn't any fun. Well, kids, what have we learned so far? We're not going to be like Jimmy. We're too smart to forget to look where we're going. Or to get careless and step on a rusty nail or broken glass. We don't want lockjaw. We like to swim too well to spoil it by going in the water right after eating. We'll let Jimmy fool around with stray dogs and cats. We know it's too dangerous. The same goes for getting caught where we can't get out. We're going to have a lot of fun flying kites, but not by running out in the street or flying them in the rain. And this will never happen to us because we're too smart to be like Jimmy and climb power poles. No, sir, when that picnic car or truck pulls out for the big event, we're going to be on it. We're going to have a good time. We'll leave the chance-taking to Jimmy. He can stay home and feel sorry for himself all day because he didn't use that big bump on his shoulders. Know what I'm talking about? his head. Let's all use ours. Why take chances?